Good evening, everyone. This is Pradeep, Ambassador of Change from GETI, the Global Education and Training Institute of Lucknow. We are the premier institute for training teachers and principals. And we have many in-service and pre-service programs. For more information on this, please go to 740-840-1000. Right now, we are on our disruptive education platform provided to us by our mentor, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. And on this platform, we have interacted with more than 1,100 educators from India and all over the world. And this evening, we have for you Ms. Asnaha Farheen. She's the head of the primary and PYP coordinator of the Abdul Kadir Molla International School, Bangladesh. She is a pedagogical leader working in the international sector for the last 12 years. She has worked in India and abroad. She has extensive experience in creating curriculum assessments and policies for the 21st century schools. She is a trained international baccalaureate leader and educator and trains teachers in India and abroad to deal with the present epidemic times. She has helped many IB schools get affiliated in India and abroad. She is a Microsoft master trainer, a Lausanne learning mentor, a Bhopal chapter chairperson of the All Ladies League, the PYP chapter chairperson for Bangladesh, for the Bangladesh network, Wakelot ambassador, Teach HDG ambassador, Fluke ambassador, and T4 country ambassador. So she wears many hats. She is an avid writer, and her articles have been published in many national and international platforms. She is presently posted in Bangladesh, and she will be speaking to us today on the power of formative assessments. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us. Welcome, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pradeep, for such a lovely introduction. And I would be speaking about power of formative assessment. Before going ahead, let me introduce myself. Mr. Pradeep has already introduced me, what I do. So my name is Asnaha Farheen, and I'm an Indian by nationality, currently located in Bangladesh, heading an international school as head of primary and PYP coordinator. I also work with Lawson Learning USA as a mentor, and the other thing has been very well explained by Mr. Pradeep. Thank you so much. The topic of today is power of formative assessment. Why are we discussing it? Let me tell you through an analogy. Say our students are plants, right? And we are planting them as seeds. So what is more important, that we nurture them so that they grow, with their full potential, or measuring them is important? Measuring is important at the end of the day to understand what was the impact, right? But nurturing them, making sure that they are getting all the macro and micronutrient, they're getting enough sunshine, right, enough water, so that they are growing in the optimum way, right? That is more important. And there comes formative assessment. What is formative assessment? When we talk about assessment, we talk about, gathering data, analyzing it, knowing it where the students are, or changing our day-to-day practices when it comes to teaching and learning. But what else when we talk about formative assessment? The types of assessment basically deals with assessment of learning, and assessment as learning and assessment for learning. Basically, we're going to discuss about assessment as learning and assessment for learning. I've already explained. So at various times, we will ask you to pause, reflect, and use the chat feature of or the comment feature of the FB to tell us. So let us know where are you joining us from. Let us know your name. Tell us about what do you do, so that we can make it a dialogue. Mr. Pradeep, I would request you to tell me what audience is saying in the chat box, if you can do so for me. All right. So what do you wonder about today's topic? When we say power of formative assessment, what is something which is coming
Yes,
to
ma'am.
your mind? Can we have something in the chat for this question? What do you wonder about today's topic? Today's topic is power of formative assessment. What is there in your mind that is coming up when we are saying this title, power of formative assessment? Are we getting any responses?
No, ma'am. Ma'am,
All
just please
right.
carry on. Don't wait for responses. Thank you.
Okay,
If
okay,
any
thank
comes,
you.
I will let you know. I will let you know. Yes.
Thank you. So my second question is, as you join in, please do reflect on this question. What comes in our mind when you think of assessments? So my first question is, what do you wonder about today's topic? And the second question is, what comes in your mind when you think of assessment? And moving ahead, if you get any answers, please do let me know. So why are we saying that formative assessments are powerful? Why are we discussing about the power of formative assessment? Because research has been conducted by Dylan William, and he took up 40-year studies and did a meta-analysis, and what he found was amazing. He says that when well implemented, formative assessment can effectively double the speed of student learning. This was a meta-research conducted by William in 2007 and in 2008. So isn't it amazing that if we are implementing formative assessment in the most appropriate way, it can effectively double the speed of students learning, right? So this is why we are discussing about power of formative assessment. As I told you, that formative assessment are broadly classified into assessment as learning. When we say assessment as learning, students wear the hat of assessor and they monitor their own learning. They ask questions and they are into the process of self-regulation, self-analysis, metacognition, and they actually learn how to learn. They decide on strategies about what they know and what they can do and how to use assessments for new learning. So here students are involved into either self-assessment or peer assessment. Now next comes the assessment for learning. In this, teachers are involved in collecting the evidence of learning. As I started and said that measuring is important, but monitoring, collecting evidences and regulating learning is equally important, right? So here a formative assessment is usually occur throughout the teaching and learning process. So these assessments are more process focused, not the product focused. It is not something which is happening at the end of the day. Rather, these are the part and parcel of our teaching and learning practices and are quite integral to teaching and learning. Some are formal, some are informal formative assessments. So what is assessment for learning and what does it do? As I said that it is an integral part of teaching and learning. It is not just used for knowing where the students have reached. Rather, it is used to know where the teachers are and what is the impact of teaching and where we need revision, where we need recap or revision, right? So assessment deals with both teaching and learning. It goes hand in hand, right? What does it do? It deepen and personalize students' development of knowledge and skills. Knowledge and skills are two different things, like their ability of what do they know and what they can do, right? They foster greater ownership and agency over learning. When students own their learning, they perform better. The third thing is create more equitable classroom, schools, and system. We all know that each individual in a classroom is different, right? They are as different as their DNA. No two learners are same, no matter if they belong to same class, same age group, even if they are brother and sister twins, right? Still they are very different. So these assessments, which we call assessment for learning and assessment as learning, help us to develop more equitable system. When we talk about equity, it is very different from equality. Equality means giving equal amount of attention, equal amount of facts to everyone. But that wherein equity means giving the right amount of attention, right amount of instructional approaches in the right way to the right candidate, right? So this makes our classrooms, our schools, and our systems more equitable. Next, what can assessment do? When we ask this question that what is the basic role of assessment? Assessment helps us to answer three key questions. What is to be learned? Second is how is learning progressing? Are we moving ahead in the learning journey or we are stuck somewhere? Are there anything that need revision? Do they need any kind of support? Are there any learning gaps? These are the questions though that can be answered. So what is to be learned? How is learning progressing? And what will we learn next? Our planning is something which should be fluid, right? Which should be very, very flexible. Planners are not the rock bottom lines, right? We all do lesson planning, but actually the formative assessments make our curriculum alive, and that helps us towards the next step of the learning journey. Assessment can support, not just measure student learning. This is the big key idea which I wanted to convey, that assessment is not an end. Rather, assessment can be viewed as a process to support student learning instead of just measuring them at the end of the day. Now, my next question is, if there are people joining us, how good are you as an assessor? Right? There's a small tool for you. This is a block tree. So, are you on the top at number 20 and considering yourself the world best assessor, or you're somewhere in the side and thinking that yes, I'm doing well, I need to improve, or you are in the midway, or you're just starting, struggle with your assessment, or you use only few assessment tools and strategies? So friends, please assign a number to yourself and let me know how good you are as an assessor. This is a great tool for as a formative assessment. In between the class, we can use it and check the enduring understanding of the learners where they are in the learning journey. So I'm using it with you to check your understanding, how good you are as an assessor. Well, teachers spend a lot of time on students' report. Here we don't have the marking system. We do not have grades. We have descriptors. So teachers write lengthy reports, comprehensive reports, right? With about everything, their knowledge, disposition, skills, how they are doing, their day-to-day learning progression, everything. But how effective are they in communicating progress? What do parents see? They just see marks, 50 out of 49 or 50, 100 out of 33. How effective are they in communicating process? Are we sure that we are measuring everything? Because as far as I have learned that, measuring everything is not possible. And what are we measuring? Probably we are not measuring all aspects of the student's progress. Right, this is one thing. So we really need to look into the reports that we prepare, how effective they are. Are they really meeting the need of the parents who wants to know the progress of their learner? Are we seeing learning as a product, or are we valuing the learning process? So something to ponder over. Next, I just want to give you a simple formula that we use here in our school. The formula I call 7 plus 4. And there is a combination of two important aspects, empower plus engage. So assessment design should empower the learner, right? So when I say empower, it is engaging students actively in identifying and formulating criteria. It is not teachers who should be giving them the criteria that tick, 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 you are going to be assessed on these things. Rather, students should wear the hat of assessor and they need to view the task that these are the aspects of this task which should be assessed. Your assessment should facilitate opportunities of self-assessment and reflection. When we are involving learner in self-assessment and reflection, they become the active participants in their learning, not as a passive participant. It is not something that is learning is done to them. assessment is done to them. Rather, they are wearing the hat of self-assessor and they are knowing their strengths, weaknesses, they're reflecting on their learning journey, they're deciding their next steps. Third is Third is delivering feedback that helps students self-correct. Saying this, very good, excellent, good going, great efforts will not make any difference. These feedbacks are dead feedbacks. So instead of that, you can give them feedbacks which are actionable and just bring a shift in your feedbacks and make it a feed forward, which will help learners to decide the next step. It should be specific in nature. Provide opportunities for feedback dialogue, peer and tutor student, right? There should be enough opportunities for peer assessment. When students are involved into peer assessment, they see their peers and they learn a lot. They develop social skills, they develop self-management skills, they develop their thinking skills because they are analyzing the peers' performance. They are, asking them questions and they're also giving them actionable feedback at what they can do to improve. And whenever students are there in the peer-to-peer conversation, the learning is more because the language is well adapted and accepted rather than a teacher delivering a feedback. Encourage positive motivational belief and self-esteem. Develop a growth mindset. Change your classroom habits by removing all the icons and just tell them that yes, you can't, but how you can. So, developing and giving them those motivational beliefs is important. Provide opportunities to apply what is learned in a new task. If the learning is not applied, it is of no use. Your learning of classroom should be transferred to the new and more challenging task. Yield information that teachers can use to help shape teaching. Do not view assessment as something which is done to student, which is telling us all about student. It tells about us, right? It tells us that where are we in our teaching journey, what are the things that has to be modified, what are the new things that has to be adapted, what are the things that has to be changed. Now engage. Assessment design should engage the teachers and the students. Capture sufficient study time and effort in and out of the classroom. Right, distribute students' effort evenly across topics and weeks. Engage students in deep, not shallow learning activity. When students they are involved into such assessment, they are seeing their learning progress with a 360-degree angle, right? Communicate clear and high expectations to students. Your expectations to students should be high and very clear. There is a research which says that if we are setting up low expectation, we are not challenging the majority of students sitting in our class. Now the next thing is how to use assessment for learning and as learning. When using assessment, both assessment for learning and as learning, the teacher needs to do the following actions. Number one, plan. Well planned is half done. We all know it, right? And if you are not planning, you're actually planning to fail. So plan and share. Plan assessment concurrently and integrate it seamlessly into instructions. Do not compartmentalize it. Today you have the unit test or today you have the CCE. You have various opportunities and those moments when you know that no, this is a time where we can check the understanding of the students. Share the learning goals and success criteria with the students so everyone has a shared understanding of the goal. If students are not knowing where they are up to and on what ground they are being assessed, will they perform? No, certainly not. Gather and give. Gather information about student learning before introducing any concept. We all know about how powerful is checking the prior knowledge. Prior knowledge assessment is important, right? We all know it. Prior knowledge assessment tell us about the conception, misconception, or do they need support? Are there any learning gaps? All those things. During the assessment and at the end of the instructions. Give and receive specific and timely descriptive feedback about student learning. I just said good going, very good, excellent. These are the words which are their feedbacks. They are not doing any good with the students, for the students. Now develop and engage. Help students to develop skills of self and peer assessments. Engage students in individual goal setting, monitoring, and reflecting on learning. These are the 3 steps which every teacher should be doing: plan and share, gather and give, develop and engage. So if we are following this complete cycle, why I call it cycle? Because we move back and forth, right? It is a complete cycle which revolves around our teaching and learning journey. If we are not following these steps, there's a big gap. I'll move ahead. Moving towards self-assessment, I just said that self-assessment is highly important. Why? Because it develops the habit of mindfulness, it develops the habit of self-regulation, and it makes learner more autonomous when it comes to their learning, and it helps them to take ownership. Self-assess, how can we start with it? Self-assessment is something which is not an overnight process. We need to model it. So while we are modeling it, self-assess the familiar tasks which they know, or performance using the clearly identified success criteria. Say you're doing a role play, right? What should be there? Props should be in place, there should be a setting, the characters should be well aligned, all those things. So start with a task which is very familiar to them, then move up. Practice using anonymous sample. When students become more confident, allow them to practice using their own work. Start small and apply the process to a particular criteria or a section of work. Then move on, observe, circulate, and give feedback and support students self-assess. So you're there as a facilitator who is modeling and then further helping them to become good self-assessors. This is an exemplar which you can use. For example, you're using this learning continuum. Students are deciding upon what are their learning goals. The steps they will take. Success will look like. They're imagining, so this sort of backward planning. They're not at the end of the day looking like what success. Rather, they are planning beforehand. What is the target date and where they can achieve, right? So this is about, for example, if you have a student who is not good at problem solving skills, or if you have a student whose writing skills, I'm talking about creative writing skills, are not in order. So this goal setting will enable them to wear the hat of self-assessor and they can own their learning. In the below part of the slide, you can see a learning progression where they can week by week self-assess their learning. Now, using peer assessment is an effective learning strategy in the classroom. As I said, peer assessment are highly important. Why? Because there is peer-to-peer conversation. There are opportunities for self-management skills improvement. There are opportunities of social skills improvement, and there are opportunities of the improvement of communication skills. Other than that, there are opportunities to develop deeper learning. But if the peer assessment is not done well, there are chances that it will hinder the students' relationship. It will hinder their progress. So what to be done if we want to really make our peer assessment more effective and more productive? So peer assessment can be a powerful learning strategy if students are adequately prepared for it and have been guided to develop key interpersonal skills. It is very important that they have strong interpersonal skills and they are guided towards effective peer assessment. For peer assessment to have an impact on learning, student needs training to peer assess effectively, to be given time to discuss and reflect on feedback to improve work. During the peer assessment, there is an exchange of feedback, there is an exchange of reflection, and there should be given enough time so that they can act on that. Guidance on working collaboratively. There are opportunities, there are occasions where there will be clashes, where there will be fixed mindset, where they'll get stuck that no, I'm not taking it, and this is something which is not being assessed properly. So you need to be there as a facilitator to play the game of middleman, right? There should be opportunities where you will be matching up. So what are some of the strategies that we can use for peer assessment? Traffic light. This is the most easiest one. Low prep strategy. Here you are giving students this particular tool, traffic light, where there are 3 colors defining the success criteria: green, amber, red. Green shows the work address the success criteria. It means the work is of great quality. Amber, it indicates that there is a room for improvement. Red suggests that the success criteria is not evident and we can do so and so to improve and to bring the level of the task up or the performance better. Second strategy is SWOT analysis. Peers are discussing their strength, areas that shows evidences of success. They're also discussing their weaknesses, sections that need work, opportunities, aspect that could be further developed, threats, obstacles to improvement, right? So they are discussing using this language to review the student work and being involved in the peer assessment. These are two strategies. The third one is feedback bun. A positive aspect of the work child is discussing, filling a section of the work that could be improved. Bottom, a positive aspect of the. So it's like a feedback bun where students are discussing two positive aspects of the work, and in the filling they are discussing a section of the work that could be improved. Weather gauge. Warm, signal positive feedback in relation to success. Cold indicate areas of improvement, and hints provide advice for raising the temperature to meet the criteria. So this is a very student-friendly language which can be used in the classroom to model and implement the peer assessment. Stars and stares is one of the strategies. Stars mean what are the good things that has been observed as those are meeting or exceeding the criteria. Stairs suggest steps for making improvement. Why do we use stairs? To move up in the ladder. This PMI chart that is meeting criteria minus criteria not evident, interesting, something to improve. Ladder of feedback, there are various strategies that you can use. I have listed down checklist and rubric. Students are discussing their checklist, right? They are looking for the success criteria, how does success look like, and utilizing it to give peer feedback. Thinking hats, right? You must have heard about De Bono's thinking hat. They're reviewing a peer work and looking into the facts. Green for creativity, yellow for positives, red for reaction, blue for process, and black for concern. So they're reviewing a peer work using the thinking hats. So they can wear either one hat or two, three hats and give the reflection to their peers, right? So this is more creative way to do the peer assessment. These are some of the templates that you can use, right? Students are listing down the success criteria and assessing it yes, no. If it is a no, try this, right? Second is what worked well, even better if you can do this, and what are the next steps. So these are some of the templates that can be used. Now this one is something which can be used as a sentence starter or a prompt. If they're not getting a proper language to give peer feedback, we can give them these sentence prompts. So this is at the very basic level when you will start the peer assessment in your class. You did a good job when, something you did well as, I like the way you, or if something that has to be improved upon, you can say you could get better at, you seem to have trouble with. Or if the child want to suggest to his or her peer, so they can use a language like, would you consider changing it? Do you think you could improve on it? Would you consider adding this, right? So these are the, setting up a culture of peer assessment in your classroom. Some of the strategies, we have discussed a lot about peer assessment. Some of the strategies of student self-assessment, it is very important that students own their learning. If we are working on their behalf and if we are only taking the assessment, there are lesser chances of their improvement. When they self-assess, they actually introspect, they're involved in the process of thinking about thinking, they learn how to learn, right? They not only think about what are we learning, they also think about why are we learning and how are we learning, right? And this is a deeper level of learning, right? So there are some of the strategies for student self-assessment. Number one, that is learning log. Maintain a record of the process. And for example, you are doing helping them to develop their writing traits. You want them to become better writers, or they are practicing on something which is a process, right? Say you're working on the problem solving skills, or you are helping them to write descriptive paragraphs, or you are teaching something which is more process focused. So they maintain a learning journal, learning log, where they are jotting down the daily progress and they're seeing learning as a process. They're also reflecting on their learning. They also have long-term and short-term goals. They plan to achieve the goals and monitor their progress. So this is something where students are highly involved in their learning. Not teachers who are doing all the job, rather students are taking the front seat. Right. Some of the strategies that worked well is a portfolio. A portfolio, it can be a growth portfolio where students are showing their process and progress. It can be a showcase portfolio where students just chose to, show their best piece of work. Portfolio comes in different shapes, sizes, and have different purposes. So, as a school, you can decide upon which portfolio are using, have those portfolio essential agreements done. So, students use this portfolio to tell the story of their learning and seeing learning as a progress and process, right? So, they give feedback. The people from the learning community, say teachers, parents, peers, they communicate their learning and take ownership of their learning. Second thing is student-led conference. If you see from the very name, it is student-led conference. It is not teacher-parent conference or three-way conference. It is student-led conference, where student is leading a conference as a speaker and talking about their learning journey. They're explicitly explaining what they have learned in so far in that particular reporting period, and they're using the portfolios to explain their learning journey. They are further discussing about the next steps. So these are the opportunities of goal setting, right? We must have heard teachers, telling parents your ward is not good at that, your ward is, and that usually lead to clashes. But what if students, they themselves analyze, no, we are not good at this, or we need improvement, or we need these steps to reach there. So it works better when then they themselves are realizing instead teachers are talking on their behalf. So these are some of the great sentence starters and prompts which teachers can use on an ongoing basis. I just showed you the learning journal, right? The learning log. So these prompts can be used. Today I learned. Now I know. I now feel confident about. I was pleased with, right? What I would like must like to know is I felt confused with, right? So they are talking about their experiences, their learning experiences, right? Prompt, what is one thing that you learned? Teachers giving that prompt. What questions do you still have? So these are the wonderful opportunities, informal ones, to take the temperature of your classroom. That what are they, doing with the learning material that you have given, or how are they taking your instructional approaches? Isn't it? So these are two ways to incorporate in your teaching and learning journey to foster the student self-assessment. Now, I'm almost at the end of my presentation. I just want you to ponder over what is something interesting that you learned today. Can you relate with something that you are, doing in your own classroom? And how is it similar, different, or helpful to events in your life? What is something that you will take back in your classroom? The first fundamental principles of effective classroom feedback, this is how I want to end it, is that feedback should be more work for the recipient than the donor, right? So if you're giving a feedback, your student should be doing more work than you. For example, if you're telling them life could be worse, Calvin, and he's thinking or she's thinking in his or her head that what this lady is saying or what this gentleman is saying, life could be a lot better too. So when you're giving them feedback, please give them positive, effective, and actionable feedback. Do not tell them what went wrong, rather tell them what went well and what are the areas of improvement. Feedback should be a positive comment. It should be based on constructive criticism, not should be based on your judgment. You're not judging a student, you're helping them to grow, survive, and thrive, right? Some of the catchy abbreviations that can be used, EBI, even better if, students, they love abbreviations. They are the students of 21st century. So why don't we make our feedback that way? HTI, how to improve. YNS, your next steps. WWW, what went well. So if you use student-friendly abbreviations, your feedback work wonders. This is a small task for you, that pretend your friend was absent in today's session. What would you say if you had to explain the session to your friend? Any question and answers? I'm done, Mr. Pradeep. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for that very excellent talk. And after a long time, I heard the proper usages of modern methods, especially the self-assessment and the peer assessment. Excellent way of teaching and the way you were able to put this forward. And I hope everybody watching will take due notice and use these things and they're so friendly when with the students and using the right language in the class. That's another positive. So I'm very impressed, man, that you used all these methods. Very in-depth talk on formative assessments and the correct way to approach them to make them effective. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pradeep.
And before we go, I request you all to watch our Detox, Disruptive Literacy Movement by Global Dream, which is an initiative by Dr. Sunita Gandhi since 2014. The whole idea is to ensure complete literacy for everybody in India by a people's movement. And you must have heard of each one, teach one. And those of us who are in a position to teach more than one, we should be able to do that. Hundreds perhaps, but at least one. And something which you can imbibe in your students also. To ensure foundational literacy and numeracy in India. Every day we have talks on this. And for more information on this and the talks that you would like to attend, please ring up 740-840-1000. So thank you, everybody. And Farheen, ma'am, thank you so much for that excellent talk. I hope everybody listening to it will use it properly, utilize it properly.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pradeep. Thank you, everyone.
It takes a lot of detoxifying yourself first before you can use these methods. So I'm sure that the teachers who are listening will certainly go on for it. So thank you, ma'am, and goodbye, good evening, and see you again tomorrow.